Hi, my name is Scott Driscoll, and welcome to my course, Surveying Blockchain Technologies for Enterprise. I'm a software developer that's been utterly fascinated by blockchain's ever-increasing influence on our world. Blockchain started as the technology behind Bitcoin and Ethereum, but is now being tested and deployed at hundreds of major corporations in industries ranging from supply chain to banking to healthcare. Why are all these companies interested in the technology behind cryptocurrencies? In this course, we're going to answer this by breaking down what blockchain is and why it's useful, surveying a wide range of enterprise applications, and also reviewing a number of different enterprise blockchain software tools. By the end of this course, you'll have a tangible understanding of how blockchain can help businesses increase efficiency, reduce cost, especially compliance costs, and even capture new markets. You'll also get a clear view of the challenges blockchain faces, including why these gains will likely require widespread industry collaboration. This course is mostly high-level and designed to be helpful to business people and developers alike without any prerequisites, but some familiarity with Bitcoin and Ethereum may be helpful. From here, you should feel comfortable diving deeper into the blockchain world with courses on smart contracts and specific enterprise blockchains like Hyperledger or Quorum. I hope you'll join me on this journey to learn about the rapidly developing world of enterprise blockchain with this course at Pluralsight. Hello, my name is Scott Driscoll. Welcome to Surveying Blockchain Technologies for Enterprise. This course will give you a tangible introduction to what blockchain is and how it can transform enterprise by surveying a broad array of different applications and software tools. Blockchain, the technology behind the digital currency Bitcoin, is now being brought to bear on a range of enterprise applications beyond currency in almost every industry, from supply chain to banking, energy, healthcare, and many more. At a high level, blockchain provides a new way for organizations to interact that doesn't require as much trust. This, in turn, promises improved efficiency, security, transparency, and even the opportunity for new business models. Let's dive into a specific application area, supply chains, to get some tangible insights into what blockchain is, how it can benefit enterprise, and some of its challenges. IBM and a group of retailers, including Walmart, have recently launched a pilot using blockchain to help increase food safety. A current outbreak of salmonella in papayas gives us insight into the motivations these companies have to improve the status quo. As of September 11, 2017, according to a U.S. government health organization, 210 people across 24 states have been infected, with illnesses beginning in May and June. Based on the times of the press releases, it appears that it took several weeks between identifying strains of salmonella in patients to identifying the likely source, a farm in Mexico. While the source of an outbreak is being tracked down, lives are at risk, as well as substantial money. The government initially recommended that an entire type of papaya from Mexico not be eaten. Later, after more tracing, the ban was restricted to specific brands and finally serialized lots of papayas. Given the cost and health risk, why did it take so long? To trace a specific papaya back to its source, the government likely had to contact retailers, distributors, multiple brands, importers, and farms all individually. One can imagine the situation gets even more complicated as products are mixed with other ingredients in long shelf life products, as was evident in another recent outbreak of E. coli in soy nut butter. Instead, what if there were a single database that kept track of every single papaya's journey? The government and companies would be able to immediately see the source of contamination and pull only the risky papayas. This sounds great, but even the most basic questions about how this might work reveal myriad complications. Who would hold that data? One retailer wouldn't want another to hold it. And given all the recent security breaches at government databases, it's unlikely anyone would want the government to operate the database. Who would be able to see the data? Retailer A wouldn't want retailer B to know how many papayas it was buying, what price it was paying, and from what distributors. Finally, who decides what the right data is? Consider what happens when a retailer orders 10 crates of papayas and the supplier delivers 9 crates. Now the retailer system shows 9, whereas the supplier system may show 10. The retailer's accounting office will likely need to call the suppliers to request a credit on the invoice. Here we see that each organization up and down the supply chain maintains their own records with good reason. One organization's records certainly may not reflect the truth according to another. Reconciling inevitable differences represents a major cost in almost any industry. Blockchain represents a new way to share data that addresses these questions. Blockchain can be thought of as a shared database, one in which control is truly shared between different organizations and is especially helpful when those organizations don't necessarily trust each other. In our papaya example, imagine if each papaya had a serial number and current owner. As the papayas move through the food supply chain, the owner is updated, providing immediate visibility of every papaya's path. This also looks like an accounting ledger, which is where another common name for blockchain comes from, Distributed Ledger Technology, or DLT. So how does this work? What does it mean to share a database? For starters, changes to the database must be approved by everyone. In that case where the retailer and supplier disagreed about how many papayas were delivered, one or the other wouldn't be able to independently update that record. Rules are established that must be obeyed in order to accept changes. For instance, either both the supplier and retailer need to sign off on the number before entering the change, or perhaps a third-party auditor needs to sign off on the number delivered. In this way, we effectively avoid any reconciliation. Valid data was required on the way into the database. In addition to regulating the entry of new data, a blockchain database has protections against tampering. Every new change to the database is accompanied with a kind of data fingerprint called a cryptographic hash. Hashes provide a short representation for a larger amount of data. A hash of the entire Bible can be only 32 bytes, but changing even a single letter in the Bible would generate a completely different hash. See how different the hashes are from these two similar sentences. In addition to this marker that tells us whether a single bit changes, blockchain goes further to link these markers together. Every time new data is added, a hash is calculated on that new data along with the previous hash. Because each hash builds on the previous one, the data forms a chain, where any change in the historical data will immediately be obvious. For efficiency reasons, new records are usually added in groups called blocks, which is where we get the name blockchain. In addition, new data must be accompanied by a digital signature, another cryptographic tool that makes sure only authorized people can change data, and that there's also a record of who did what in case of any wrongdoing. Finally, each peer maintains their own copy of this common ledger, where they independently check the rules, hashes, and signatures as new data arrive. All these components contribute to a database where every participant has truly shared control and strong assurance that data won't be tampered with. The end result is more trustworthy data, even though it's not on your own database. And with this new layer of trust in data, we unlock all sorts of efficiencies and possibilities. With a single shared ledger, it would be trivial to track down the path of a papaya in seconds. Trusting data also unlocks automation possibilities across what I'll call trust boundaries. A new order for food could be placed automatically when stock runs low at a retailer, or shipping insurance could automatically be paid when a shipment is late, or a temperature sensor indicates frozen goods have melted en route. While these types of automation are possible without blockchain, they require a certain amount of trust in the inputs, and therefore procedures to cross-check and verify information. Blockchain reduces and in some cases eliminates the checks and controls required with that trust, thereby unlocking automation. Now, despite this promise, there is reason for skepticism. Couldn't a group of companies get together and form a consortium group that runs a database in which everyone is given controlled access? Why blockchain? There is a spirited debate going on about this. Is blockchain really different than a distributed database? And if so, where does it add value? Even determining exactly what a blockchain is and isn't is an evolving question. Hundreds of enterprises from almost every industry are currently running pilots to hone in on exactly what blockchain should look like and where it can deliver value. While many pilots recently begun show promise, there are many details to be decided in any implementation, and adaptations must be made from the blockchain behind Bitcoin to one that works well for enterprise. For example, in Bitcoin, all data is viewable by everyone, whereas in enterprise, data must be kept private, and not only from the outside, but also selectively within the network. In our papaya example, different retailers wouldn't want each other to see how much fruit was ordered, but it would be valuable to give governments or auditors access to this data. Performance is another area where the original blockchain falls far short of enterprise needs. Bitcoin can only handle a few transactions per second, while modern databases handle millions. The blockchain behind Bitcoin is also very expensive, by design in fact. Various fees and costs are needed to prevent abuse while keeping the system completely open. Almost all enterprise blockchain platforms in development hope to exchange openness for better privacy and performance, while still retaining the benefits of decentralization. Our last module, Surveying Enterprise Blockchain Tools, will detail a broad range of these and the trade-offs each has made. But first, let's better understand the problems at which blockchain is being targeted in the module Surveying Enterprise Applications. In this module, we're going to look across a broad array of industries to see example enterprise applications where blockchain promises substantial value. Despite blockchain's strong potential, many have commented that blockchain technology does not neatly fit into existing business models. It's not, for instance, just a different database that can be swapped in by IT alone. Blockchain adds value by creating a new way for separate organizations to work together, so realizing its benefits often requires innovation in business models in tandem with technology innovation itself. We're going to cover a number of areas, including supply chains, energy, finance, banking, and healthcare. Along the way, we'll also touch on IoT, or Internet of Things, and insurance. We began looking at food safety in the supply chain and how blockchain could help track the provenance or history of ownership of a specific item from farm all the way to table. While giving government authorities extra visibility can help track down a safety concern, almost every other party in a supply chain can also benefit from extra insight. Let's start at the farm, the furthest point from end consumers. While consumers may be willing to pay a premium for features like sustainable production, GMO-free, and simply better taste, farmers cannot necessarily capture those premiums. Food typically goes through many layers of middlemen, like distributors, packers, processors, and retailers before it reaches consumers. Irrefutable documentation of the value added at each step not only will give consumers more confidence and willingness to pay, but will translate into higher pay for those adding the value. A company called Ripe.io seeks to use IoT sensors to help in this documentation effort. This starts at the farm with humidity, temperature, and even color sensors on crops, continues with temperature sensors on trucks and in packing facilities, all the way to processors that record exactly which foods go into final products. With increased visibility, added value can be better rewarded. These quality markers can gain additional power as third-party auditors or agencies add additional confirmations or measurements to the chain. More data isn't just about fairer payments, but also about unlocking opportunities. Ripe.io says that 10% of crops are thrown out in peak seasons. A company called SweetBridge says only 75% of all global assets like trucks, warehouses, etc. are used at any given time, largely because of siloed data. With a better connected network, there is ample opportunity for better utilization. This is especially true for smaller companies. While large companies like Apple and Walmart already have good visibility from retail inventory all the way down to raw material stocks, smaller players do not always have access to such data and cannot react efficiently. For example, is an uptick in orders due to a temporary marketing campaign or a general increased interest in a product? Unknowns like these often lead to oversized reactions far down the supply chain, known as bullwhip effects. With better access to data like retail store inventories, marketing campaigns, the entire chain can better match supply with demand. A company called Everledger is also using the blockchain to improve transparency, but with diamonds rather than food. The goal is to prevent blood diamonds, diamonds whose sales fund wars, and also prevent theft and insurance fraud. Everledger says over £2 billion of loss is due to insurance fraud every year. To address this, Everledger records a fingerprint of high-value diamonds on the blockchain based on inherent characteristics. As the diamond changes hands, these changes in ownership are also recorded. And importantly, any reported thefts are recorded. This way, a potential buyer can check the blockchain to make sure they're not about to buy a stolen diamond. And if police recover diamonds, they can be returned to the original owners or insurers. While a thief could try to modify a diamond to obscure its history, they wouldn't be able to do so without also damaging the diamond. Everledger is branching out to the art world too, and even luxury goods as a way to reduce counterfeits and protect brand image. While provenance is important in almost any industry, it is vital in the drug industry, where counterfeit drugs can lead to deaths. In these cases, blockchain technology's immutability is the key to the traceability. No one can make a change to a record after it has been entered. It's worth diving a little deeper into the details to understand some nuances in both the confidentiality and security of these systems. Everledger actually uses two different blockchains to store data. Data hashes are stored in a public ledger like Bitcoin, but additional details of specific police reports, for example, are stored on a consortium chain that only provides access to select members. Why use two chains? Consider the immutability claim of a chain run by a group of, say, 10 companies. In private chains like these, immutability is a result of a single company not being able to change a record without the other 9 agreeing to it. But if all 10 agree, there's not a technical reason they couldn't all rewind, change some data, and re-enter the data. It turns out immutability, like many other properties of blockchains, is on a sliding scale. Now, if transactions are never used outside of a small consortium, immutability may not matter, but if a large network of police departments and insurance companies want to trust it, immutability, or the inability for data to be changed without someone realizing, is vital. The most immutable blockchain currently running is the Bitcoin blockchain. Hundreds of thousands of people maintain copies of the ledger and would notice any change. Furthermore, Bitcoin's ledger is also protected by a concept called proof of work. Without going too far into the details, know that adding new records requires a substantial amount of computing power. This computation is not a technical requirement for a distributed system, but rather a way for everyone to differentiate the real ledger from potential fake ones without needing to trust any central authority and operate in an open, anonymous network. If presented with several different ledgers, the real one is the one with the most work. You can look at the Bitcoin ledger and calculate how many millions of computer hours were needed to generate it. Even a large government would struggle to generate a competing ledger with more work than the Bitcoin network, now the world's largest computer. Most private chains do away with this expensive function since internal members are more trusted, but with it goes some of the immutability. Everledger seeks to provide a middle ground where hashes of data on the private chain are stored on Bitcoin. In this way, sensitive details are kept secret, but the system is able to leverage the much greater immutability of a public chain, which acts as a kind of notary. Even within a private chain, there are many cases where data visibility needs to be nuanced. Consider financing in supply chains. Many suppliers must obtain loans to produce goods since payment isn't sent until after delivery. It would be beneficial for those suppliers to show financiers an indisputable record of their past performance, including metrics like quality, delivery time, etc. However, those suppliers would certainly not want to reveal customer and performance data to competitors. A blockchain with selective privacy controls could reveal data as needed, as in this case to obtain a loan, but also to government authorities such as customs and tax officials. Now, while this may sound simple on the surface, there are complications. If data is private, how can everyone on the chain verify that data entered has complied with rules? More on this in the next module. The sheer number of participants in the supply chain makes data sharing and the movement of goods complicated. There are governments, importers, shippers, custom brokers, freight forwarders, ocean carriers, and many more. And many of these still require original paperwork, such as bills of lading, to accompany goods through the system. IBM and Maersk did a study of fresh flowers and found that over 200 documents were generated for a single shipment of flowers. A proof-of-concept system was developed to replace all these documents with a single blockchain-based system, where all participants could access digital versions of these documents. For export, 3 government agencies electronically sign off on chemical treatments, origin, and duties. Information about these approvals and a truck's departure is visible to the port, so they can begin preparing immediately. Delays due to waiting on paperwork were reduced, and participants were able to move the shipment faster by acting on data in real time. Now, is blockchain technology needed to replace all this paperwork, or just a centralized database? I think a key consideration is the question of trust. Who would run this database? And what assurance do all these different actors, from export officials and government to shipping companies to end purchasers, have that the database operator is faithful to their interest? Blockchain reduces this need for trust across very different parties, while also unlocking the benefits of digitization. In addition to reducing the cost and chance of fraud with physical paper, digitization also provides opportunities for automation. Consider shipment insurance for perishable goods. If refrigeration is ever lost along the route of, say, seafood, the entire shipment could be lost. A shipper might have insurance to guard against refrigerator malfunction in cases like these. Before payouts can be made, claims must be investigated. Now consider a blockchain-based world where information is more reliable. Perhaps a temperature sensor on a truck reports an errant condition directly to the chain, and additional third parties verify the state of goods before and after shipment, all writing to the same database, visible by the insurance company. It's hoped that by increasing the veracity of information from sensors and multiple parties, not only will fraud go down, but systems can be automated. Blockchains can not only store data, but also process data through programs called smart contracts. These are programs that operate on the blockchain with high certainty. Members running a blockchain all run the smart contracts themselves to verify results. A smart contract could automate an insurance payout based on temperature data or arrival time, removing the cost of verifying and processing completely. Smart contracts get more interesting the more connected they are to the real world. One example of this is a smart lock to a warehouse. A smart contract could automatically transfer access to the warehouse and its contents upon payment of an invoice. While the legal framework is still under development, there are even more possibilities if we can tie legal, real-world ownership to records on a blockchain. This is called asset tokenization. Tokens are records of ownership, somewhat like deeds, but are easily transferable on a blockchain. The company SweetBridge hopes to utilize tokenized assets to allow companies to provide peer-to-peer loans without any banks involved. Loans would be backed by tokenized assets, like buildings, equipment, or even accounts receivables, all of which could be controlled by smart contracts that automatically transfer those assets if a loan is defaulted on. The World Bank and SweetBridge note that 50% of small businesses lack access to financing and on average wait 42 days between invoice and payment. SweetBridge hopes smart contracts can fulfill this massive unmet need, but it will likely be some time before the legal world recognizes a blockchain smart contract that truly owns and controls physical property. Let's now move on to another industry that's increasingly becoming more decentralized: energy. As more green energy comes online, such as rooftop solar panels and wind generators, energy distribution is becoming more distributed and complicated. There's no longer a top-down model of a single generator and many end consumers, but rather a distributed network where consumers may also be suppliers. The grid is ill-suited for this new configuration, both electrically and financially. Siemens and a startup called LO3 piloted a microgrid in a Brooklyn block where owners of solar panels could directly sell power to neighbors via a blockchain ledger rather than back to the utility. The ledger enables direct peer-to-peer purchasing and also provides a secure record of transactions. There is also interest from local businesses buying green local power and giving those customers special credits. Now, certainly the power company could deliver this service on a website, but blockchain removes the need and cost of a third party to stand in the middle. Blockchain can also unlock efficiencies beyond just enabling a peer-to-peer network. Let's look at the financial side of the energy market to understand how. Most people pay for electricity only after they use it, mainly because it would be infeasible to buy electricity 1 minute at a time. This introduces a risk that someone will use a whole month of electricity and not pay for it. A company called Grid Plus, made of people that also worked on that Brooklyn project, is making a device that will enable minute-by-minute purchases using the blockchain. Grid Plus acts as a local utility, buying power from the wholesale market and selling it to its end customers who have these devices. The smart devices pay for power in near real time. Grid Plus's device gets even more interesting when customers start installing home batteries. The devices could buy power when it's cheap, sell power back to the grid when it's expensive, and even connect to thermostats and other appliances to make further optimizations. Interestingly, Grid Plus is not using a private network, but rather the public Ethereum network. We've already mentioned several problems with public blockchains, including performance, privacy, and cost, but another is the volatile price of their tokens. You can think of this as a kind of foreign exchange risk. If you enter into any smart contract over a period of time, say a month-long apartment rental, you might end up overpaying if the price of a public network token like Ether goes up 25%. Grid Plus has developed a range of technologies to overcome the public network drawbacks, including payment channels to boost performance and reduce transaction fees, a stable token to shield customers from swings in price of Ether, and a physical device to simplify the management of cryptographic keys for the end user. So, with all these needs, why not just use a private network? For Grid Plus, it's important that their end customers retain what's known as user agency or control over their funds. Running on Ethereum provides a much stronger guarantee of user control. It also eliminates another major category of risk for Grid Plus called custodian risk, where they hold and control user funds. If the end users have true control over their funds at all times, Grid Plus avoids that risk and its inherent regulatory oversight. Immutability and user agency are two aspects that private chains may struggle to port from public ones. These kind of smarts on the edge of the grid can not only help individual customers save money, but also reduce overall system cost. Utilities must build transformers and power lines to handle the peak loads. Dramatic changes in loads, whether due to air conditioners turning on or clouds blocking solar panels, also cause large cost. Turning on and off power plants is costly, and the bigger the swings, the costlier. If demand can be leveled out by exposing real-time price incentives to end users, there could be substantial savings for the entire system. The additional visibility and secure record of energy production and consumption can enable other goals as well. For example, if you produce energy from renewable sources, your energy could be tagged as green. Other individuals, companies, or government incentive programs could pay a premium for that green energy, somewhat like carbon credits. Now, this kind of world depends on smart meters and switches to fairly document energy flows. What's to stop someone from hacking a meter to defraud the system? Luckily, blockchain's secure record can provide a clear trail of fraud in this case. There will also likely be providers that audit meters to inject additional trust into the system. Now, blockchain will not solve all problems as the grid becomes more decentralized and smarter. Even if I can buy power directly from my neighbor, somebody still has to pay to maintain the power line going between our houses and the connection to the larger grid. But programs on blockchain could automatically reserve a portion for utility providers. And to be clear, some of the benefits I mention here are due to digitization, not just blockchain. But blockchain has the potential to help automate the marketplace of money and energy and do it in a cost-effective and secure way. I'll mention one other project that's now up and running and beginning to show the possibilities. Energy, a subsidiary of RWE, the European energy giant, has recently launched an electric car charging system where consumers can purchase and sell electricity through an Ethereum-based network. The company, called Share and Charge, interestingly makes no mention of blockchain on its website. It only mentions the convenience of the app and benefits of using its network. Blockchain merely provides the back-end plumbing. This is exciting because it shows the power of blockchain and IoT together. We can even imagine a future where the car itself becomes connected. Imagine a self-driving car that runs its own business, collecting fares from riders and using those fares to pay for power at charging stations as needed. Let's now look to the financial world where some of the first experimentation with blockchain for enterprise took place. Just as paper bills of lading are still relied on in the supply chain world, stock issuance in the private equity market is also largely still paper-based. In 2015, NASDAQ began testing a product called Link that digitizes stock issuance for pre-IPO companies. Rather than sending around paper certificates, stocks are issued digitally and stored on a blockchain-based ledger. This makes the current and historical ownership of shares easily visible. Now, one could argue here that blockchain is not needed to digitize stock certificates, but NASDAQ sees this simplified case as an important first example of legally handling stocks on a blockchain. The larger public stock market, where there are many intermediaries and regulations, can yield much greater benefits. Despite public stocks being digital for some time now, there's still nearly 2 days between a buy or sell action and actual settlement. Settlement means that cash has changed hands and the security record is officially in the name of the new owner. Stocks are now largely stored in central security depositories, but investors do not interact directly with these registries. Investors act through what can be multiple layers of custodians, banks, and intermediaries, especially in international transfers. These intermediary layers handle numerous roles, checking investor identity to comply with anti-terrorism and money laundering laws, making sure those customers have sufficient capital for trades, and netting trades to reduce overall transfers. While these services are necessary, significant capital is tied up in this process. Records get confused and must be reconciled, and there is risk of companies going bankrupt during the trades that must be insured against. In one shocking example of what can go wrong, when Bear Stearns collapsed, it was found out that 28% more Bear Stearns shares were on record than had ever been issued by the company, according to a report by Euroclear. A single record maintained on a blockchain would eliminate the potential for these reconciliation costs and hopefully bring about T0, or instant settlement, by giving investors direct control. Directly connecting investors could also bring benefits to other related processes, like investor voting and communications. Right now, there is no easy way for a company to reach its investors. Communications must travel through layers of intermediaries. NASDAQ created another pilot in Estonia to address this, where companies were able to send votes directly to share owners, and those owners could either vote or easily delegate those votes. Once data is shared on a blockchain, better opportunities for automation also arise. Smart contracts, or programs that run on a blockchain, could execute automated dividend payments, margin adjustments, and corporate actions. In such a highly regulated environment, this type of transformation will not be without its complications. There will be cases where these smart contract programs face situations that weren't thought of before deploying the code, and human intervention will be needed. Another regulatory complication involves jurisdiction. Currently, the location of the golden record of the stock takes precedence. In a distributed ledger, however, there is no single golden record, as the record's ownership is truly distributed. The upcoming right-to-be-forgotten law in the EU may also cause complications, as blockchains are designed to be immutable. The regulatory issues are not all negative, though. Currently, regulators receive reams of data from firms and must decipher this data in an attempt to ensure the market as a whole is not facing systemic risk. Frederick Voss, VP of NASDAQ Blockchain, uses the phrase regulatory goggles as a way to give regulators special access to the entirety of market data on a blockchain. By operating a blockchain node themselves, regulators could get access to data in real time and, importantly, the real data, not reports that must be cross-checked. Moving beyond stocks, there are several other areas where financial institutions are exploring blockchain potential. Any organization involved in the financial system is facing more and more stringent customer identification requirements. In the U.S., these laws are known as KYC and AML, or Know Your Customer and Anti-Money Laundering laws, and require institutions to ensure their customers are not doing anything illegal. This requirement can be expensive and requires substantial data collection from customers, verification, and investigations into the data. Financial institutions spend anywhere from $60 million to $500 million per year to keep up with Know Your Customer and customer due diligence regulations, according to a Thomson Reuters survey. The French bank Crédit Mutuel Arkéa is piloting the use of blockchain to share KYC documents between different divisions. For example, if a customer provided a passport to open a new life insurance policy, that information could immediately be made available to the bank's consumer credit group. The bank is even looking to provide identity as a service to third parties, such as utilities, retailers, and service providers. The State Bank of India has also recently announced a similar initiative to share customer data among banks using blockchain. If more verifiable information becomes available about customers, even on blockchains not run by banks, it could open up new lending markets, providing a credit history to previously unbanked. A blockchain track record of sales could provide sufficient creditworthiness. Similarly, small and medium-sized businesses may be better able to provide collateral information. I'll end this section with a brief note on payments, perhaps the most obvious area of potential improvements, given the ability of Bitcoin to transfer millions in minutes across borders. International payments currently go through a system of correspondent banks, a point-to-point relationship-based system. Once again, blockchains can remove the need for intermediaries. And if we look at the company side of payments, there is substantial reconciliation costs that could be saved. A report by IBM claims its own internal accounts payable group was able to save 60 to 80% off each invoice cost by utilizing blockchain technology. The report explains that much of the work performed by accounts payable teams results from inconsistent data between suppliers and buyers, and blockchain's single version of the truth eliminates this. The same report says IBM Global Financing is able to reduce dispute time from 40 days to 10 and free $100 million in capital through the use of blockchain. Healthcare is another area where better data visibility and interoperability between organizations would yield massive benefits. On a personal level, at least in the United States, patients must fill out new paperwork at every new provider, as each provider maintains their own records. When doctors need to share records, fax machines and phone calls are used, and oftentimes data is lost or changed in these transfers, leading to expensive reconciliation or patient harm. Siloed data is not only problematic for patients, but also for the larger healthcare ecosystem. Providers, insurers, and governments all must share data in order to approve payments for treatments. In the fragmented U.S. system, billing and insurance-related payment processing cost over $470 billion in 2014, over 15% of total healthcare spending in that year. Claims can take months to resolve, leaving providers without pay in the duration. Part of the difficulty is due to patient privacy laws surrounding health information. Patient information must be securely maintained and transferred, and only released as requested by the patient or for their care. Allow me to paint a picture of a world where patient data is owned and controlled by the patient and not providers. When the patient visits a new doctor, they use a smartphone app to provide the doctor a key that provides limited access to the patient's health record for the time needed. This could include a general health overview and x-rays, but maybe not genetic information or an AIDS test result. When the doctor accesses the information, a record of that access is permanently recorded in a blockchain, along with any new test results and analysis done by that doctor. Needing an operation, the patient gives permission for the insurance company to view their record to provide pre-approval. Pre-approval is given automatically and without any human intervention because the insurer has proof via digital signatures that the notes are from the doctor and that the doctor has the appropriate licenses. After the procedure, payment is also automatically released. The hospital follows up with the patient to make sure the patient is taking necessary drugs and attending physical therapy, after which the insurance company provides a bonus payment for following best practices. The patient automatically receives a notification about a new clinical study for their procedure and elects to submit selective data about their health in return for a payment. That study takes advantage of long-term data about the patient's health and provides more personalized care in the future to another patient with similar characteristics. While this scenario may seem magical to U.S. citizens, many companies are working towards this vision with promising initial projects. Estonian citizens have actually had their health records stored on a blockchain since 2015. A company called GuardTime provides a blockchain where any change to data is recorded, thereby providing extremely durable, auditable health records. Another project is attacking an interesting niche: provider identity. When a provider wants to get a job at a new hospital, the doctor must submit their school, residency program, and information about any state licenses they have. The hospital then needs to verify each piece of information by calling the original sources individually. A company called Hashed Health is setting up a blockchain-based registry in the state of Illinois where all these different groups can submit information once and not have to repeatedly answer verification calls. Hospitals can trust records in the registry because digital signatures guarantee the data was produced by the entity claiming to have produced it. It's an interesting starting place because it doesn't involve sensitive Healthcare is another area where better data visibility and interoperability between organizations would yield massive benefits. On a personal level, at least in the United States, patients must fill out new paperwork at every new provider, as each provider maintains their own records. When doctors need to share records, fax machines and phone calls are used, and oftentimes data is lost or changed in these transfers, leading to expensive reconciliation or patient harm. Siloed data is not only problematic for patients, but also for the larger healthcare ecosystem. Providers, insurers, and governments all must share data in order to approve payments for treatments. In the fragmented U.S. system, billing and insurance-related payment processing cost over $470 billion in 2014, over 15% of total healthcare spending in that year. Claims can take months to resolve, leaving providers without pay in the duration. Part of the difficulty is due to patient privacy laws surrounding health information. Patient information must be securely maintained and transferred, and only released as requested by the patient or for their care. Allow me to paint a picture of a world where patient data is owned and controlled by the patient and not providers. When the patient visits a new doctor, they use a smartphone app to provide the doctor a key that provides limited access to the patient's health record for the time needed. This could include a general health overview and x-rays, but maybe not genetic information or an AIDS test result. When the doctor accesses the information, a record of that access is permanently recorded in a blockchain, along with any new test results and analysis done by that doctor. Needing an operation, the patient gives permission for the insurance company to view their record to provide pre-approval. Pre-approval is given automatically and without any human intervention because the insurer has proof via digital signatures that the notes are from the doctor and that the doctor has the appropriate licenses. After the procedure, payment is also automatically released. The hospital follows up with the patient to make sure the patient is taking necessary drugs and attending physical therapy, after which the insurance company provides a bonus payment for following best practices. The patient automatically receives a notification about a new clinical study for their procedure and elects to submit selective data about their health in return for a payment. That study takes advantage of long-term data about the patient's health and provides more personalized care in the future to another patient with similar characteristics. While this scenario may seem magical to U.S. citizens, many companies are working towards this vision with promising initial projects. Estonian citizens have actually had their health records stored on a blockchain since 2015. A company called GuardTime provides a blockchain where any change to data is recorded, thereby providing extremely durable, auditable health records. Another project is attacking an interesting niche: provider identity. When a provider wants to get a job at a new hospital, the doctor must submit their school, residency program, and information about any state licenses they have. The hospital then needs to verify each piece of information by calling the original sources individually. A company called Hashed Health is setting up a blockchain-based registry in the state of Illinois where all these different groups can submit information once and not have to repeatedly answer verification calls. Hospitals can trust records in the registry because digital signatures guarantee the data was produced by the entity claiming to have produced it. It's an interesting starting place because it doesn't involve sensitive patient data and can begin to show immediate benefits to the healthcare ecosystem. Several other companies are attacking the payment problem head-on with blockchain. A company called Gem has launched a project that reduces claim settlement from 48 days to 5 minutes. They take an interesting approach, never storing actual patient data on the blockchain, but just pointers to that data, along with permission policies. All records are linked to a specific patient ID, thereby allowing long-term views of the patient's health. It even provides some amount of automation, sending out explanation of benefits based on pre-configured rules and approval of claims. These examples paint a promising picture of blockchain's potential, even in the extraordinarily regulated and entrenched healthcare industry. Extra visibility into more data should help research and even enable new payment schemes like value or outcome-based payments. Currently, there is little data available about outcomes when patients aren't taking part in explicit surveys. By better managing this data, blockchain may provide markets and incentives to collect this data. This could also include the flood of data from IoT devices like heart rate, glucose, steps, etc., now much of which is never utilized. There are, however, still many questions to answer. Existing health systems will not simply plug into new blockchain networks any more easily than they would to other systems. Integration work and agreement on standards will still be needed. Also, blockchains may be good at preventing data modification and recording who changes or accesses data, but duplicating data across many different nodes, even if encrypted, may increase potential for leaks. Blockchain technology provides a single version of the truth, collaboratively maintained by untrusting groups. As we've seen, the potential benefits cut across a wide variety of industries. Blockchain eliminates the need for intermediaries to stand between people trading stocks, energy, health data, or money, enabling faster, cheaper, less risky transfers. Increased data visibility empowers regulators in food safety and finance, enables smarter decisions in the supply chain, and also opens new markets. From customers looking for environmentally friendly food or energy to bankers offering loans based on information outside traditional credit scores, to health researchers looking for more data. Importantly, that information is only valid if it is indeed true. Blockchain ensures this with irrefutable signatures on data, a storage structure that makes tampering nearly impossible, and strict rules on new data entering the blockchain. Mistakes, fraud, and counterfeits can be drastically reduced. A flood of information is being generated from IoT sensors in our homes, cars, and bodies, and blockchain is poised to help create a market for that data while hopefully enabling people to truly own and control it. Finally, when companies and assets are digitally connected and can trust information, smart contracts on blockchains can automate processes that used to require manual intervention. But all these benefits do not come without significant challenges. Blockchain networks become more valuable as more members participate, but this requires wider spread agreement on standards and protocols. After agreeing on standards, connections must be made to existing enterprise IT systems. While blockchain promises better insights for regulators from the financial world to the supply chain, regulators need to be involved in blockchain's development if blockchain is to be trusted. There are holes in current laws that simply don't contemplate what it means to have a shared database or to own a tokenized asset. And what happens when mistakes are made? What if a smart contract deletes an asset or someone loses a password? Any blockchain implementation will have to have human-level recovery and legal fallbacks. Finally, while sharing data unlocks numerous benefits, it must be carefully shared not to reveal commercially sensitive financial details to competitors or personal genetic information. The blockchains behind Bitcoin and Ethereum display all data to everyone in order to provide trust in a resource that anyone can use. Providing that openness comes at the cost of very slow performance and high fees. Luckily, enterprises generally don't want or need such openness. As we'll see in the next module, a wide range of tools are just now coming out of development that provide blockchain technology with the performance and privacy enterprises need.